Hello there, good morning, good afternoon, and hello to everyone who's joining us today for our third webinar in the Games series of webinars, which is around how to include sponsors in your event sustainability strategy. And this will be the case of the World Floorball Championships 2022 and 2024. Thank you very much all for joining us today.
You're muted, Matt.
Thank you very much, Telo. It seems I was muted, so let me begin again. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our third webinar in this Games series of webinars, which is looking at decarbonisation in the sports industry. Today, we're going to look at a particular case of how to include sponsors in your event sustainability strategy. And we'll be looking at the case of the World Floorball Championships, looking at both the 2022 event, which happened just over 18 months ago, and the 2024 event that's happening later this year. My name is Matthew Campelli, and I will be your moderator for today. But mainly, we're going to be hearing from three fantastic speakers throughout this presentation. Firstly, we'll be listening to Telo Callisto, who's the sales coordinator and the leader of sustainability at the International Floorball Federation. Then we'll be moving on to Daniel Casa, who was the event director at the World Floorball Championships 2022 in Zurich, in Switzerland. And finally, we'll be looking forward to the 2024 championships with a presentation from Amanda Emmett, who's the coordinator of the World Floorball Championships 2024 for the Swedish Floorball Federation. Now, we're going to run for about 45 minutes to an hour today. We'll be hearing from all of our speakers, each of their individual case studies, but towards the end, we'll be going through some questions. So please, if you get questions, please put questions into the chat box throughout the whole presentation, and I'll try and get through as many as I can when we finish up. So a few things we'll learn today. We'll mainly be learning about how commercial partners have worked and are working with the World Floorball Championships 2022 and 2024 to help with their sustainability work and sustainability operations. So that can be ranging from anything from supporting public transport provision to producing more sustainable equipment and generally reducing environmental impact, and looking at things like repurposing branding material, looking at cutting waste and cutting emissions. Before I hand over to our speakers, just a very quick word about the Games project, which is the project where these webinars are the base. This is a project that is funded by the EU Erasmus Plus project, and we're about 2/3 of the way through our project, which started in June 2022. The key areas of this project is looking at how we can decarbonise or help to decarbonise the sports industry through the events and through governance. The main partners of the project include the Santana School of Advanced Studies, who are the technical partner for this project, and the sports partners are as well Athletics, the International Biathlon Union, and the two organisations we'll be hearing from today, which is the International Floorball Federation and the Swedish Floorball Federation. I represent Touchline, which is the dissemination partner for the project as well. The Games project has 5 key areas. First one is around raising awareness and increasing the adoption of climate change mitigation practices by key sports actors. And we really started the project by analysing the current climate change governance and management models adopted in the sports of athletics, biathlon, and floorball, with a view to developing a path towards decarbonisation in each sport. The project is supporting athletics, biathlon, and floorball with key strategic objectives, programs, and operational frameworks. And this includes looking at training modules to improve environmental knowledge within those sports. And one of the key areas, which is one of the reasons why we're doing these webinars, is to leverage the popularity and interest in these sports to increase environmental awareness. Again, if there are any questions about the Games project, we can answer them in the Q&A as well as the topic we're speaking about today. But now I'll stop sharing my screen and I will hand over to our very first speaker of the day, which is Telo Callisto. Telo, over to you.
Thank you, Matt. And a warm welcome to everyone from me as well. And I'll be talking to you about what the IFF has done, or mainly the approach that the IFF has adopted towards sustainability. And I'll just head right into it, but I'll start with just a couple of words about the International Floorball Federation. So we're the global head organization of floorball. We work with 80 national associations, and it's our work to promote, develop, and protect our sports on a global level. Our biggest asset, what we actually have, is the rights for the World Floorball Championships, which are held annually, biannually women, and then the next year it's again the men. And just to give you an idea of the size of the events that we have, so on the best events we've had, it's up to 180,000 spectators that we have had over 9 days of tournaments. So we've grown into quite a substantial event size. And I'm just highlighting that because of obviously also the impacts that these events have also on the environment. So we were established back in '86. There were 3 founding members, and as I said earlier, now we're already 80 members. So we've grown quite substantially, and looking forward to growing even further when we celebrate our 40th anniversary in a couple of years. We're quite a tight-knit operation with 9 staff, and as said, the development has been quite rapid in these just under 40 years. We have been recognized by the IOC, and since 2017 we are also a medal sport in the World Games. So we've been that now twice with the men's, and we're really looking forward to the next edition in 25 in Chengdu, China, where we can also include the women. But talking about our approach towards sustainability. So it all started already back in 2018 when we started preparing the next strategy cycle for the International Floorball Federation, which was initially approved by the General Assembly in 2020. And here you just see the 4 main focus areas that are included in the strategy. And under governance, sports culture, and leadership, then we had also defined that we want to be a leader in sustainability on that path up to 2032, what we have defined in the strategy. It actually started already in 2019, when we maybe slightly prematurely, but we decided to join the UN Sports for Climate Action Framework. And from that moment onwards, we have then started working on ways how to include it into our strategy on a more concrete level. When I mentioned the UN Sports for Climate Action Framework, that has been something of a guideline for us, because where you see here, they have their guiding principles, and we have been working quite strongly based on these as well. So you can see that there is the definition of undertaking systematic efforts promoting the responsibility regarding the environment, reducing the overall climate impact. We also want to educate. We have also received a strong back of this based on our fan survey. So they really want us also to lead the way and educate the community. The 4th principle is to promote sustainable and responsible consumption. We have a lot of ways to do that, and we reach a lot of people. And then advocating for climate action through communication. So I brought this up because on the next slide, just to show how we have adopted these into the IFF approach. So first of all, we have introduced sustainability into the bidding requirements. So that is on a very high level to make all the hosts already think about sustainability from the moment when they start bidding for the events. And this is also based on strategic goals that have been defined as key performance indicators in the IFF strategy, with one of being the carbon neutral events by 2028. And it's also guidelines that we have brought forward to event organizers, giving them the right direction where they can make a biggest impact regarding environmental sustainability. Of course, creation and sharing of best practices, which has also been a big part of the Games project. And then also securing that there's also a legacy when these events are implementing sustainability actions. And one of the key performance indicators that we have actually also defined in the strategy that in the future, by 32, we will only allow recycled material in championship textiles, just to bring you a few examples of how it's embedded in everything what we do. Awareness raising programs are a big part of the IFF programs. We have in 21 introduced a Fair Floorball initiative, which is basically an umbrella of all sustainability actions, not only environment, but also things regarding social equality and things like that. So all pillars of sustainability. And of course, we want to promote things how people can implement sustainability in their everyday lives. We will see also some good examples from Daniel in his next in his presentation regarding public transportation, recycling, and then of course certain kind of nudging initiatives in our events of making people aware how they can impact the environment, the way they lead their lives and to make choices. And of course, in the Principle 5, we have a strong community where we can impact people, have athlete ambassadors, create case examples, things like this. So this is where we're building on the principles that had been defined in the UN Sports for Climate Action framework. I also want to highlight here that being a fairly small organization, the Games project has been a really, really beneficial thing for us. As Matt already presented what the project is all about, but for us it was very important in the beginning when we mapped the current status of our climate governance and management models, we could pinpoint where we are already in the right direction and where there are places and room for development. Then the creation of the best practice library, which was a big part in the start of the Games project, of course, gives us a lot to work on when we are giving guidelines to our event organizers and stakeholders in general. That also being, of course, on the procurement side. Then we have already defined prioritized development goals within the project. And then next, of course, will be then the implementation of these set goals, and then also with the help of internal education, help the staff and our event organizers to reach those goals. And then obviously the work doesn't stop. The continued development of the climate change mitigation practices in all various forms is what we will do after the Games project. Because on top of the defined goals, we also have additional goals that were found but cannot fit into the time schedule of that project. And that was a very brief, general outline of how the IFF has approached the strategy. And to be honest, we are very proud of our event organizers, and they have basically then taken the huge leap of putting this into action, which will be then a part of Dani's presentation. And it also just shows that we have the rights for these events, but it's the cooperation which then leads to the actual outcomes on the actual results when we are organizing our events together with the local organizing committee. The Swiss really were pioneers in floorball to do this when they hosted the event in 2022. And I won't take too much time on that because that is where Dani can help you out the best. So in 2022, they created the Green Goal Initiative, and that already started right away in 2018 when they received the rights to host the event. And further, really proud that based on the results and this initiative in 22, it's the 24 event who carries on the legacy of the things that were implemented, and we will even surpass maybe those results and definitely have learned from the things that were put into action in Zurich, and looking forward to see where we end up in Malmö in December. So that concludes my part, and I will hand over to the next speaker.
Just before we hand over to Daniel, thanks very much, Tero. I really appreciate your presentation. Really interesting. If anyone has any particular questions for Tero and his element of the presentation, please get your questions into the chat box, and we'll go through them right at the very end. But now, as Tero very nicely segued into Daniel's presentation, I'd like to hand the floor over to Daniel.
Thank you very much, Matthew and Tero, for the introduction and the interesting information. Thanks to all for the general information. I will share my screen right now. So yes, here we are. My goal today is to share actually some best practice cases. I think that's very important. Was also very important for us. And I would also like to share some experiences, especially what did work and what didn't. So that was a very good time for us just to see what works and what didn't. And my main goal really is to share some real life experiences here. But first, just some facts about our championship, which is almost 1.5 years ago. In Zurich, we had these 16 nations as usual, and the event was held in Zurich, and the B Arena was in Winterthur. The organizer was Swiss Union Hockey, which is the Swiss Floorball Federation, and we had something over 150,000 spectators, which was the second largest championship so far after Prague 2018 with 180,000 spectators. Our budget was approximately 7 million Swiss francs, and in this budget we had from the beginning on planned to spend around 500,000 for sustainability topics. And this is just one very important keynote I want to mention because this sustainability budget was very important for us, especially in the sense of a commitment towards the public sector, also towards the sponsors and partners of the championship, but also a commitment inside of the organization just to make this sustainability a very important topic. And this was really also seen as an investment. And with this amount, you were able to create some topics and cases, which also created then another value for the event. So that was a very important step just in the beginning to like fix it and commit to this budget in sense of sustainability topics. When we go further, our main questions in the beginning were those two, and they accompanied us during the whole time. So the first question was how we can minimize the carbon footprint of the WFC. That was important, but the second one was also very important, and it was how we can create added value for the event with this topic. So our goal was not just to try to minimize everything, but also to create added value in general with this topic. And for that, it was very important for us in the beginning to create some facts. So honestly, we didn't have much knowledge about where we will expand some CO2 or how we can minimize it. So first, we had to create some facts just to start the process. And for that, it was very important for us to have the support of the IFF, which already started this topic together with MyClimate, which is an organization based in Switzerland, which is specialized on calculating CO2 emissions. And that was very important for us that we create some kind of a benchmark to see where we are at and what the benchmark is actually. And for that, together with the 2018 WFC in Prague, we created this benchmark. That means that MyClimate calculated the emissions of the 2018 event, and that gave us the information just to start with this topic. And as you can see here, the majority of the CO2 emissions were created by the mobility of the guests, of the spectators. This is the yellow part. And then the whole catering, this is the blue part, and the green part is in general the material. So those were the three big areas where we had the most potential to minimize the emissions. And our process was then that we went into every area, and then we just found out what the potential in a certain area is to minimize CO2 output. So a very easy and simple example is the mobility of the spectators. So here you can see the output of CO2 if every single spectator would drive to the arenas by car. So this would have led to 315 tons of CO2. Then the second potential case would have been as if the share would be as general in Switzerland. So there's about 65% of the spectators would make the transportation by car, and the rest by train. This would have led to about 205 tons of CO2 emissions. And then the ideal case would have been if everybody would take the train, and this would have led to only 16 tons of CO2, which would be the perfect case. And our goal was now to aim to this perfect case and really reach some significant CO2 emission reduction here. So this is the process we went into every area and just to find out what the potential of minimizing is in every arena. And then based on these facts and based on this benchmark, it was very important for us to create a story, to create a brand, to create a mission for everybody. And this is when we started with the Green Goal brand, which gives a face to this topic, which shares some stories about this topic. And into this brand, we pushed all our sustainability goals. And with this brand, we also tried to create some cases and some projects we could do with our sponsors and partners, and also give it a storytelling to create added value for everybody. And this is also a very big learning that we had, that when we speak about cases, it was very important that we created these cases. So first we thought that we can go to our sponsors and ask them what they will admit or what they will create to reduce the CO2 emissions. But we learned that A lot of the sponsors had some interest in the topic. They even had some cash to spend in this topic, but they didn't have like prepared cases to start. So it was very important that we came up with the ideas and that we had some fix or finished cases to bring up to them, and then ask them if they want to join those cases. So that was a very big learning. Based on that, then we created our green goal also as a measurized number, and this was a maximum of 3,000 tons of CO2 input, which would be less than half of the emissions from 2018 in Prague. And here you can also see again those areas we spent time on, and in every area the potential to reduce the CO2 output. So this went from the arena, which was very easy for us to reduce the CO2 output because both arenas from us were built in a very high standard concerning outputs. And then the biggest field, as mentioned earlier, was the traveling for fans, the food, and also the material waste, where we saw some significant potential to create lesser CO2 than 2018. And then based on that, we went on and we created the challenge. Hey, let's reach together our green goal of a maximum output of 3,000 tons of CO2. And now I want to go through some examples how we managed this together with our sponsors. The best case practice or the use cases which worked better or less better, we'll see that. But the first case was a mobility case we had together with our main sponsor, which is an insurance company in Switzerland, Die Mobiliar. And the first, actually, we wanted to introduce or to integrate like the public transportation into the ticket of the event, and the public transportation within all Switzerland, but this turned out to be too costly for us, so it was too expensive to integrate public transportation in all of Switzerland. So we decided to integrate the public transportation of the canton of Zurich, where the championship was held. And for all the people outside of Switzerland, outside of Zurich, we created this case with the Mobiliar, which contained a charter of 4 extra trains during the weekends. Every train had a capacity of 1,000 seats, and we created really this fan trains starting from Bern to Zurich, and every spectator was able to buy this ticket on a very cheap price. So it was 15 Swiss francs for adults, and it was for free for children. And it was all then in this story of the Mobiliar will invite everybody outside of the canton of Zurich to come to the championship with those extra trains. And this one actually worked very well. So we were able to sold out all 4 extra trains, and it created also an added value for all the spectators in these extra trains, because that was much of fun. You can imagine just a train full of fans having a blast in this train, going to the arena and back. And this really was a very good example on how to add added value to the event, while also saving a lot of CO2 output by bringing the people to the trains. So that was a very good example of how we can do that, and it was also very much appreciated by the spectators. Second one was also a mobility topic. So we invited all schools in Switzerland to attend the championship, especially for the morning games, where the arenas weren't packed. And together with our sponsor, which was also an insurance company, the Concordia, we invited all classes to come by public transportation for free. So that meant that Concordia was paying for the train tickets for all the pupils, And so in this case, the classes were invited to be to attend the championship for free, and also to have the journey to the arena and back for free together with the Concordia, which created a lot of interaction between the brand and the school classes, and was very easy and nice to have cool stories about this journey from the classes into arena. And in the end, we had almost 25,000 school kids into arena, which also brought a lot of added value to the event because it was really loud and also very crowded in the games in the morning, where usually you don't have a lot of spectators. So this was very sympathetic and a very nice case also which brought a win-win situation for the brand, for the kids, and also for the championship. Then a third case was together with our sponsor Flurup, which attacked the waste management. So as you can imagine, we had really a lot of branding material, as you can see here on the left. And this material was basically done at the end of the championship, and there is no really reusable aspect to it. So we decided to create materials out of this branding material. You see it on the right side. We created some gym bags and also other bags, which was made out of this branding material. And the partner Flurup was paying for the production, and we were able to sell all those bags. It was something over 1,000 items, and with the earnings of the bags, we were able to cover the compensation of the CO2 we have emissioned during the championship. So this is also, I think, a very easy case, and it's also a nice added value for the spectators when they want to get some souvenirs from the championship. And it's also very easy to tell and very easy to attract people to this project. So also a project which worked very well. Then the fourth case was about volunteers clothing. We had almost 3,000 volunteers attending the event, and they all needed to be equipped with clothing. And for this case, we worked together with a brand in Switzerland which has the brand right of Switcher. Maybe some of you know this brand. It's a brand who is known for its sustainability goals. And together with Werk 5, which was the partner, we created a whole new clothing line. The fabrics of the clothing was made out of 100% recycled cotton and recycled polyester. This led to 95% lower CO2 emission compared to normal fabrics. And in the end, every volunteer had really nice clothing. The only hard part of this was that due to the fact that we had like our own line, we had to order the clothing very early in advance. So this was over half a year in advance that we had like to make the final number of the clothing. And this was very tough to calculate, and we ended up with way too much clothing. And this was a little bit a pity. So that was the disadvantage of this whole thing, that we just needed to order to be safe, and we ordered way too much. So in the end, we had way too much clothing, but we're able to donate it to other organizations within Switzerland. But that was the tough part. Otherwise, this worked very well, and also the volunteers were happy with the clothing. Beside of the integration of the sponsors, we felt that it was also important to bring the visitor directly into the story. So we created a fan guide, which also included the green gold topics. And beside the mobility, the main part the visitors were able to bring in this was the catering in the arenas. And there we found out that it's very tough, like to motivate the persons to consume like the the low CO2 output stuff like vegetarian stuff and non-meat stuff. That was very, very hard. And in the end, I think it's about the offering you have. So we decided to not have any red meat in our catering rotation. But in the end, the visitors just wanted to consume their usual event meals, their usual event catering. And this is a tough part. I think this is very tough to like make a change in the habits of persons, what they eat at the event. So it was a nice story, but in the end, I don't think that we had a lot of success, like that the people decided to have like the vegetarian meals. So this is a tough part in our experience. Also very tough was the integration of the clubs. So we created the Green Goal Award, and we tried to motivate our clubs to also have some project to lower their CO2 emissions in their club life. So we created a CO2 calculator for the clubs, and we brought up this Green Goal Award and award the best projects. But this, in our opinion, was very tough to motivate the clubs. Also, maybe because of the same reasons as I mentioned before with the cases of the sponsors. So it's tough for clubs to bring up their own projects. So it's also it's more important that you as an organizer create cases and try to motivate others to be part of those cases than to let them build up their own case. So that's our experience. In the end, it was a nice project, but I don't think that it was the big changer of this to create this Green Goal Award. Yes. Just the last information about how it all went. So those are the numbers. We almost reached our goal of 3,000 tons. So it was in the end 3,019 tons CO2 emissions, emission output. So that was satisfied for us and quite a good result. We were also able to halve the footprints, CO2 footprints of every person in the arenas compared to 2018. And third case, that was very nice for us that we were able to increase the budgeted sponsorship income for about 50%. And a main reason why we were able to enlarge this amount was this green goal. So the sponsors were motivated to spend more monies in cases because they were able to be part of this green goal, and they saw it really as an added value. And with that, we were able to sell like bigger sponsoring packages. So this is, again, the investment in the beginning. When we talk about 500,000 Swiss franc, we invested in this topic. I think in the end, we had more output also in financial reasons than we had input in this. And this is a very, very good experience for us. And it's also another reason why every organization should think about such cases. And it's really possible to create added value with this topic, even in cash-in cases. So that's a very important experience from our side. Yes, that's about it from 2022. And with that, thank you for your interest, and I will hand back to Matthew, I guess.
Thanks very much. That was a fascinating case study, and we already have some questions coming through from the audience. So please keep the questions coming through for Daniel's presentation as well, and we'll get through them right at the very end. We also have a nice bit of clarification from one of our delegates here, who's from Nicholas, who said that some of the volunteer clothing was actually reused for the floorball Final Four in Germany. So there was some use of volunteer clothing, which is a nice bit of context. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Before we move on to the question and answer, I'm going to hand over to the next edition of the World Floorball Championships in 2024. And Amanda will take us through some of the progress she's made with regards to engaging sponsors in their sustainability work. So Amanda, without further ado, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Hope you can see my presentation now, otherwise please let me know. And thank you, Tara and Daniel, as well for your presentations. And as an appropriate follow-up then, we will move on to the men's championship in 2024, which will be here in Sweden. Before I start, I just thought I'd present my contact information and quickly introduce myself. My name is Amanda, and I've been working at the Swedish Floorball Federation since 2021 in different roles, but now during 2024, I am focusing on this year's championship in my role as coordinator. And some quick facts about the Men's World Floorball Championship 2024. It is the biggest international sport championship in Sweden this year, with 16 participating nations. It is held between the 7th to the 15th of December in Malmö, which is a city located in the very south of Sweden. And one of our main core values for the championship is sustainability, which leads us to this seminar. So our approach to sustainability could be summarized as taking responsibility for the impact we have on our surroundings and reducing our environmental impact and making conscious choices. This applies to all levels of sustainability, and today, as you know, we focus on sponsors. So at the initiation phase of the planning for the championship, we created a sustainability policy together with the partners who are involved in creating the event. And this policy covers different focus areas, such as this part about partners, suppliers, and sponsors, describing that we will use our influence to affect those actors. We also created an extended part of the policy for internal use, which includes more information about how we will work with partners and sponsors. So we will strive to choose partners and sponsors who work actively with sustainability. We strive to work together with partners and sponsors on sustainability issues, campaigns, and creating activities on site with a clear sustainability focus. And we encourage partners, exhibitors, and retailers to prioritize renting or using recycled materials when building stands, stalls, and installations. But as there are still 8 months left until the championship starts, we haven't really had the opportunity to do all of this yet, but we do appreciate the work that we have done already in this very early phase of the planning, as we now have the policy that will guide us when this work intensifies and more decisions on the subject have to be made. But there are also several things regarding this subject that have already been discussed or that are a current topic in our organization. So for instance, we have looked at what has been done during previous championships to see if we could continue that work or perhaps adapt it a bit so it works with our planning and goals. And I think one good example of this is the collection boxes that were used during the World Floorball Championships in Uppsala and Helsinki in 2021. These were placed in the arenas as well as in training facilities a few months before the championships. And thereby giving people the opportunity to donate used and maybe broken equipment that they didn't want or didn't need any longer. And some of the equipment could then be repaired and donated to charities, and the rest could be recycled. And we think this is a great idea as well, and this is something that we aim to do. And by having dialogues and collaborating with the International Floorball Federation, we have also received some good ideas on what aspects of this worked best and how to expand this project. So our goal is therefore to take this one step further by putting these boxes in training halls, not just in Malmö, but also in other parts of Sweden. And we're currently discussing this idea with a potential sponsor, which also is a very good example of how sometimes the idea comes first and then a suitable sponsor has to be found. But it could also be the other way around, which is one of the reasons why we have included a specific part about sustainability in all of our sponsor contracts, which is describing, for instance, that we strive to work together on sustainability matters and leave a positive impact on our surroundings. And we also want to raise awareness among current and future sponsors by describing our work, asking questions about their work, and so on. So for instance, when we discuss clothing for volunteers with our sponsor, we make sure to ask and receive information about their sustainability work, the material of the clothing, etc. And as previously described, we aim to be part of sustainable collaboration, and Daniel just told us about how they could offer free public transport to all visitors of the championships in 2022. And we do unfortunately not think that we will have the same opportunity, but instead we are looking at what we could do and maybe adapt this. So we are thinking about we are going to give all the teams free train tickets to go from the arrival airport in Copenhagen to Malmö, and back after the championship, which is just a 25-minute train ride. So instead of picking them up by bus, this will be the transportation for the teams. And this is the concept that we tested during an international tournament last year, and this worked very well. And we're also investigating the possibility to offer free public transport together with the regional public transport company to other groups, such as volunteers and school children, also as Daniel told us about. And finally, I would also like to mention Pantamera, even though they are a partner to the Swedish Floorball Federation rather than the World Championship. But I just think they are a perfect example of all the things I mentioned on this area from our sustainability policy and from our sponsor contracts. So Pantamera has been one of the main sponsors of the Swedish Floorball Federation since 2015. And they are a company that are managing the only approved recycling system in Sweden for beverage packaging with deposit. And the partnership is implemented on several different levels, for instance, through fair play prizes in both the Swedish Super League and in the Pantamera League for youth. And this is a league named after Pantamera to raise awareness about recycling. And actually, one of the goals of the partnership is to make youth more aware of the benefits of recycling, as this is the group in Sweden which consumes most beverages but has a lower degree of recycling behavior than other groups. So therefore, floorball clubs are also given the opportunity to gather cans and bottles with deposit, recycle them, and thereby receiving an income for the team or club. And collection boxes, like the one you see here to the right, for cans and bottles can also be placed in the floorball arena. And Pantamera is also part of the Swedish Floorball Final every year, where they offer activities for visitors, such as a floorball obstacle course, as you see on the picture. And our floorball districts and clubs have also had the possibility to order these obstacle courses for free to use back home in their own training facilities and at their own events. So with all this said, we are of course hoping to welcome Pantamera to the World Championship as well. So to summarize what we have been doing and what we are doing and what we are planning to do, we created a sustainability policy that will guide us in our work. We have included a specific part about sustainability in all of our sponsor contracts. We drew inspiration from previous championships and learned from them. We have dialogues, raise awareness, and ask questions. We strive to have sustainable collaborations, and we will intensify this work the closer we get to the championship, for instance, by offering opportunities for sponsors to create activities on site with a sustainability focus. So that was a short little brief of what we're doing. So thank you very much for your attention and welcome to Malmö this year. And if you would like to read more about our sustainability work, you can do so at our website.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for a really interesting presentation. Like I said, for the other two, for Tero and for Daniel, if you have any questions for Amanda specifically about the championships in 2024, please get them in. We've got about 10 minutes for questions. We've already have some questions coming through, so I'll just kick right off with them. Tero, we've a question for you, which is from Georg from the University of Hamburg, and Georg is asking, when you were doing your initial sustainability strategy work, to what extent did you involve commercial partner sponsors in that kind of stakeholder process? And if so, how did you do it?
That's a good question. From our big IFF sponsors, we did involve, for instance, our floorball product sponsor, and with them we discussed the possibilities of what they can do within their organization and their production processes. That means that we looked, for instance, at the plastic that they're using in their own processes, as floorball sticks have plastic blades and we play with plastic balls. So they were looking through this initiative, they were looking at the possibilities of using recycled plastic for stick blades. Unfortunately, the quality was not sufficient enough for that. But then we are now looking at possibilities of carbon recycling, because the sticks are made of carbon fiber. So that's something that's being looked at since several years already. There's a good initiative available for that. And what they did do that then they actually introduced one product that was partially compensated. So they had a stick model which was partially compensated through MyClimate. And another thing was that we were actually looking for a new sports apparel sponsor at the time when we introduced our new strategy. And when we made the final decision, when we're now working with Puma, obviously a really big factor was that they have a very extensive sustainability strategy, and the products that they sponsor, which is mainly our referee equipment or their clothing, that it's all produced from 100% recycled material. I hope that answered your question, at least in one way.
Thanks very much, Taylor. And if there are any kind of, if you want clarification on any of the questions, please feel free. You can reach out to any of our speakers afterwards. I'm sure they'll all be happy to answer your questions. Daniel, I think the next question, I think it's given to everyone, but I think it maybe speaks to you a bit better. This one's from Caroline, and she's asking about. So you obviously mentioned the investment that sponsors had made and partners had made in sustainability work in terms of a monetary investment. But Caroline is asking. Did they support with kind of shared experiences, contacts, their own knowledge as well? How did that sort of the relationship work?
Yes. So the first touch point was, as I mentioned before, that you have to give some use cases, just to say, okay, here is maybe 2 or 3 use cases that they can choose from. And as soon as you have a case, then you want to integrate also the sponsors and their experiences in this case. So this is very, very important. So they should be part of it. They should integrate it in their communication. I also saw a lot of sponsors who actually had some sustainability persons in the company, but they were lacking of cases. So that was our main contribution, just to have a real use case. And as soon as you have defined together this use case, as soon as that happened, then it was easy also to integrate them and to learn from their knowledge and to get their contacts and everything. And that was very important to involve them in the case, but just the first step had to come from our side, just to create this case. But from then on, it was a collaboration, and the more the sponsor was involved, the better the case was.
Thanks, Daniel. Question for both Amanda and Tero. Maybe I'll start with Amanda first. And we've obviously referred to the Games Project as obviously looking at ways to help support sports like athletics, floorball, and biathlon with sustainability work. But how is the work of the Games Project kind of played into your thinking, particularly around the organisation of the championships? Maybe Amanda, let's start with you first.
I think in general, the Games Project is sort of serving as a guideline for us in how to think and how to work with these matters. So since we have all these examples, we can learn from each other, and we can collaborate with the International Federation, and we've also made this roadmap with steps to follow. I think we have gotten a much bigger insight in how to work with these questions in the best way possible.
I thought I would open to you because obviously the IFF is part of the Games Project as well. But there's another one to tag on to that, because Gilbert's asked another question, which is probably more relevant to your organisation, because you're an organisation rather than an event holder. And he's asking about European legislation. So how is that kind of playing into your thinking as you're moving your sustainability strategy going forward? So I guess two-pronged question: how is Games supporting the decarbonisation work for the IFF, and how is kind of other external forces like upcoming legislation impacting the way you're thinking about sustainability and decarbonisation at the IFF?
Well, first of all, regarding the Games Project, I think being a small organization with very limited resources, I think that working together brings us a lot of leverage and power. And then I have to say that the expertise of the Santana School of Advanced Studies has been hugely beneficial for us, because as a lot of people know who are starting or getting started in this area, it's a huge area to tackle, and they have so much expertise, and they work. Their project management regarding this project is impeccable. So I think that has been a huge help for us. And of course, working with huge or big organizations such as World Athletics and the Biathlon Union, that they are a big inspiration and help for us. And we've also had some good examples that we have been able to use what we have received from them. So not reinventing the wheel every time. On the second question, European legislation, it will be interesting to see in terms of commercial partners when the EU is introducing their own requirements regarding carbon management or carbon reporting. So I think that creates a situation where we need to be able to match those criteria as well. But I think as we are already have started well in advance, I think that will be helpful or beneficial for us. But I think it will also create a bigger awareness of the sponsor side that these things need to be very concretely tackled and addressed. So that's my take on that question.
Really last question for you, Daniel, because I think it was really interesting. You talked about the real successes in the project, but also things that you feel could have been slightly better. And I think a question that could be really helpful to our audience, particularly those who are in the organization of events, would be so. For example, you talked about food and the clubs as an area that you felt could have been improved a little. If you were to organize the championships again in the future, what were your learnings from those particular kind of projects that you feel that you could that would improve it the next time around?
Yeah, but when it comes to the Green Goal Award, to involve the clubs, I think we were way too late. So a project like this needs to have a developing time of, let's say, 2 years or more, I guess. So you need a first year that everybody get to know the project and have some examples, and then a second year to build on this. And we were definitely too late because we launched it maybe 10 months before the championships. And after our championship, there wasn't a successing project. So the Green Goal Award is still somehow here, but there's not an actual project. So the championship could have been helped to start the project if it had a successor, and it hasn't. So there, I think it's the timeline which needs to attack a project in a long term and not just for a championship. And then when it comes to the catering, it's a decision you have to make as an organization, how far you want to get into the habits of the spectators. So you can have like a very strong way and just say, okay, we don't provide any meat, so this is a solution. But then you kind of get very, very deep into the personal habits of the people, and we decided not to be as extreme as that. Well, we excluded the red meat, which was a step, but I think if you want to have real results here, you need to be more aggressive in what you offer the persons. That's probably the simple answer.
Thanks very much, Daniel. And we're coming up to the very end of our webinar, so I'm going to wrap this up here. A big thank you to everyone who joined us today, and thank you very much for all of your questions. Big thanks as well to Amanda, Taylor, and Daniel for joining us and giving us their expertise and their time. Just very quickly before we leave, our next webinar, our fourth webinar of the series, will happen in 2 weeks' time, the 23rd of April at the same time, which will be how to minimize the impact of mobility at sports events, the case of the Biathlon World Championships 2023 and World Cup 2023 as well. So hopefully we'll see you there. Until then, thanks very much and hope you all take care of yourselves. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining.